Hello, my name is John Deakins. I was born in Boone County in 1947 in a doctor's private hospital in Harrison, Arkansas. I grew up on Gaither Mountain in southwest Boone County and spent all my early years there. Graduated from Harrison High School, spent 4 years at the University of Arkansas, was out of state for many years, returned to Arkansas again. I have taught school at Bearville. I've taught school at Western Grove. I currently live in the Batavia area west of Harrison. I've spent nearly all my life in Boone County. I'm going to talk to you mainly about the life up on Gaither Mountain just a few years ago. Back around the year 1900, which I'm old, but I'm not that old, about 1900, you started getting a number of families moving into the top of Gaither Mountain down there, including my ancestors. Access, in those days, it was by horse and wagon. You left before dark in a horse pulling your wagon, maybe with your family, maybe without your family. You spent the whole day getting down to Harrison or wherever you were headed, and you got back way after dark that night. The roads were, in those days, they were all bad, and they were steep, and they were rocky, and they were dirt and gravel and nothing else. Maintained poorly and irregularly. Well, by the time I was born, my father was grew up in the Depression here and joined the Navy, as many of the guys from the central part of the United States did. Spent many years overseas, all kinds of different stations. Met and married my mother on the West Coast, and they were all set to move back here and set up a farm and just farm in Boone County. When on the way back home, my mother got appendicitis, used up all their savings for the hospital, and my father re-enlisted for just a few months in 1940. And the enlistments say for the duration of the conflict. And so he was in all the way through World War II and moved back here. I was born, as many people were born, in 1947, the big baby boom generation out on Gaither Mountain. Well, when I was born, everyone was filled with confidence. They were wanting to have big families. They were wanting to develop here. There was an agricultural school at Harrison. My father and my uncle both went to that school. Land up on Gaither Mountain was cheap. Many places went for $1 an acre plus $1 to file because they'd gone back for taxes during the Depression. Nobody could afford them. Nobody could afford to buy land at any kind of price. And so veterans especially came back, saved up a little money and bought some pretty big pieces of land. Those same pieces of land now go for $1,000, $2,000 an acre. Different kind of a day and age. Okay, I grew up, and when I got to be about 5 years old, I'm all set to start school. School was not like schools now. One-room school at Hilltop, Arkansas. First year, 6 grades, we had 20 people. Second year I was there, we had 25 people. The third year I was there, we had 16 people, and 16 people wasn't enough to keep the school open. And so the Boone County School Board, which doesn't even exist anymore, the Boone County School Board said, if you can just find 20 people next year, we'll keep you open. We couldn't find them. So we got consolidated down to Caps and got to ride a school bus 29 miles down the back roads of Terrapin Mountain and cross the creek 7 times and go to a 2-room school down at Caps. Well, I went to school 3 years there and went on to Harrison Junior High School and high school. That school was only open for a couple more years and was consolidated into Harrison. It was happening all over the place. The smaller schools were just being pulled in. At the time I was growing up, I remember there was some paved road. There was some paved road to the bottom of Gaither Mountain, but there was not 1 foot of paved road on Gaither Mountain. It didn't exist. There were good dirt roads, dirt and gravel, but they were pretty crooked and they were pretty rough, and paving was something that just wasn't done. The first paved road up Gaither Mountain was built in 1960, the time I was a 9th grader. 1960 was a very eventful year around here. That was the year of the Harrison flood. it rained, and 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 then it rained some more. I remember riding the school bus. We're going down a straight stretch there on the top of the mountain, sideways. The back end of the bus was just almost passing the front end of the bus as it clawed its way along through that red clay mud. Parts of the mountain would slide off and they'd rebuild them. Parts would slide off and they'd rebuild them. But eventually they got a pretty good road built. And now paved roads are common up there. Telephones, didn't know such thing as telephones. Public water system didn't exist. You had your own well, or you had a spring somewhere you hauled water from, but nobody was on public water, and very few people had pumped water. Telephones, the closest telephone was somewhere down in the valley. They just didn't exist. That means that for entertainment from the outside world, we got radio, or we made our own entertainment. Simple as that. The kids my age ranged through the woods, across the landscape. We were everywhere all the time. It was a poor area to start with, but in the early 1950s when I started school, it got extremely poor indeed. We had 3 years of the worst drought you have ever seen. The typical rain around here should be 40 inches a year. We got 20 for 3 years running. We had a month there. Watch the temperature records. Many of the top temperature records for the dates in the summer are set in 1954. That was the worst of the worst. The wells were dry, the springs were dry. People who've been planning to make a living farming weren't going to make a living farming because there was just, you couldn't raise cows. A garden, you had to fight every square inch of it to get it to grow. No water. A lot of people were leaving here to go to Wichita or to Tulsa because there were big aircraft plants in both those places. Other people were leaving just simply to move into Harrison in the hope of finding a manufacturing job. More and more people were looking to move to town and work in a factory someplace. And the number of people remaining just got smaller and smaller and smaller. Again, that's what closed the school because there weren't many of us. We were poor, but nobody really knew we were poor because everybody was poor. The picture of our second grade class, we're all spread out against the side of the Hilltop School. Looks good. That's now the Hilltop Church of Christ. It looks good, all right, but there's not a shoe in the lot except on the teachers. Nobody had shoes. We spent from April to October, you didn't want to wear shoes. Shoes cramped your feet. They rubbed on your feet. When I had to wear shoes, I was wearing some cast-off shoes my brother had. There were more knots in the shoelaces than one shoelaces. And if I had to run fast, I just gave kick, got rid of them, and they're gone, and then I can run. Okay, sometimes I had to run because I was kind of a smart-mouthed little kid. And the sixth graders will beat up on you when you're a third grader. That happens. It was a different world completely. We had a tiny little library. My sister managed to read every single first grade book and every single second grade book, so got promoted directly to third grade when she should have gone into second grade. One of my friends, when we started out the first grade, there was only one boy who had qualified, and that's different. You can only start the first grade now if you are 6 years old when school begins, which is back in August. Okay, in those days, you could start school if you were 6 years old by, well, for a while it was the 1st of December. Then they moved it back to the 1st of September. But for us, it was, we only going to have one first grader. So we got drafted. I was 5, and 2 of my friends were 5. One of my friends was born in January, as I was. One of them was born all the way up in March. He wasn't all that long as 5. And so we started the first grade together, 4 of us. And I would give those 4, one was only the one that actually qualified for the correct age. One teacher, one room, interesting. Our first grade teacher, whose name I now suddenly forget being an old person. Second grade teacher was Mrs. Collins. Mrs. Collins had been a missionary in Africa. And it was, she had some interesting stories to tell. Our third grade teacher was Mrs. Marler. Mrs. Collins and Mr. Marler, they didn't take any lip from anybody. They had, if there was for instance, a fight broke out, well, you better watch out, because they would come out there and grab up the two guys who'd been doing the fighting and paddle them good and soundly, and then grab up anybody who was standing too close to enjoying the fight and paddle them too. And just, it was a different system entirely. 3 grades there, you learn a lot about politics there. Learn when there's only just so many people and you're all walking. Nobody was delivered. The first day I went up to register for school, I rode up on a wagon being pulled by a tractor. After that, nobody's parents brought them in cars. Everybody walked. Some of them walked several miles. It was just, that was the way things, no one thought anything about it. It was the way we did things. 3rd grade, well, 3rd grade's over. We're going down to the big school at Capps, 2 rooms. The bus ride was a horror. It was crooked, it was steep, it was dangerous, and they would not send anybody that way now at all. We picked up very few students along the way, but if you've ever been back, the road down Terrapin Mountain is no better than it was. So go that way sometime and get a kick out of it. I say Terrapin Mountain's just part of Gaither Mountain. Gaither Mountain is the largest surface area of any mountain in the world. That's not the tallest by any means, but it has the largest surface area. It spraddles partly into Boone County, partly into Carroll County, way overtakes up great big parts of Newton County, just one mountain. But it has dozens and dozens and dozens of coves and points and partials, and it's different. The climate up there automatically, at the very best, is 5 degrees cooler than it is in Harrison. We hated to come to Harrison. It was always hot down here to us. Up there in the winter, it was 5 degrees colder, but in the summer, it was 5 degrees cooler. We got a breeze blowing across the top of that mountain. Harrison gets cut off from the breeze. If you measure measurements from the lowest place down, say, in Crooked Creek in Harrison to the highest place on Gaither Mountain, it's over 1,000 feet, probably closer to 1,200 or 1,300 feet. Actually driving up Gaither Mountain, about 600 feet. From the average part of Harrison, about 800 feet. There's a slow rise between here and there, but you suddenly are moving up just like you took a section of land and turned it on its side, and we go that far up in the sky. We get colder weather, we get icier weather, we get not wetter weather necessarily, but it's completely different. It's like if you're watching the Springfield News and they give the Harrison forecast, pay no attention if you live on Gaither Mountain. That's not your forecast. Your forecast is the Springfield forecast. We're about the same level as they are. Different case. Well, a 2-room school was interesting. Harrison Junior High School was absolutely fascinating because everybody went places together. You went one place for one period and one place for another instead of staying in the same room all day. I had never done that before. And it was like a whole bunch of soldiers all marching in step, going from, it was fascinating. That was a horror of an old building too. As the 3rd floor had this fire escape on the outside, which was steep and metal and none too safe. And they didn't hold very many fire drills because I think they were afraid that kids going up and down them in large numbers would make the fire escape fall off. I wasn't sure. They got rid of that building. I mean, it's now the county museum, but it was a junior high school for me. And the high school building, we called it the new high school. Well, the new high school's a different place now. That's now the junior high school, but I've substitute taught in that junior high school now, and there's very, very little difference on the inside. One of the big differences is air conditioning. When I grew up, nobody had heard of air conditioning. Air conditioning was something that happened in some city far away. They didn't have it in Harrison. They didn't have it in the schools for sure, and nobody on Gaither Mountain had air conditioning. We were glad to have electricity. I remember once electricity was iffy. If we had an ice storm, we didn't have any power for 3 weeks. That was like the big ice storm down here in 1960. or not, in 2009, it was, you walked where you went or took a sled, but nobody was driving. You simply couldn't go around, and every power line to the houses and between the houses was down. It was uncommon, but we were used to doing without electricity. It was one of those things, 2 or 3 times a winter, we'd be out for a day or so. Harrison, very uncommon. Up there, always happening. Everybody had a garden. It was just, you know, town folks. Some of them do, some of them don't, but everybody had a garden up there, and it was a distinct part of your food supply. Cash crops, well, when my grandfather was a young man, people would grow corn. They'd clear the land. The tops of the mountain is fairly flat. They'd grow corn and corn and corn till they wore the ground out. It was never good land. It was not like the creek bottom land down by Harrison. It was never good land, and corn, after a few years, didn't do so well. And then people started moving away. So now, what I can say, this used to be a cornfield. Well, I can say that, but to anybody else, it looks like forest. The trees have had 60, 70 years to grow up, and you can't tell where the fields used to be. Well, still though, that was what you took to a mill to be ground into cornmeal, some what you kept, some what you paid the miller with. And that was a big part of your food. But you also had a garden with all kinds of gardens. You grew everything that you can imagine, and canned it if you could, and dried it if you could. There were other things out there too. Walnuts. Walnuts weren't picked to be sold like they are now. You picked them up to crack them and eat them that winter. Huckleberries. The wild huckleberry is almost extinct for 2 reasons. Deer. There were no deer. You think of the country being full of deer. Now, when I was growing up, I saw one deer the whole time I was growing up. And he was passing through, I guess, running pretty hard and never came back. Now, I've got deer in my backyard. So they're common as can be, but the deer being common did something. Deer in the wintertime love huckleberries. They love the little buds on the huckleberries, and they nip them off. So the deer killed out huge amounts of huckleberries. The other part was that people used to clear land by burning it off, get rid of all those old oak leaves, and huckleberries love burned off land. They like ashes. And so there used to be, you could go out and pick 2, 3, even 4, 5, 6 gallons of huckleberries today. Today, I might know where there's enough bushes to make 1 pie. That'd be it. It just didn't exist. Blackberries, well, they were common then, they're common now. We picked a lot of blackberries. Dewberries, which is a vine-type blackberry. Persimmons, couldn't keep them very well, but you could eat them when they were in season. And people had fruit trees. The fruit trees did very poorly back in the drought. One of the reasons was the rabbits. Rabbits are hungry just like everything else is, and they will eat fruit tree bark. I remember having to wrap our fruit trees up 3 feet off the ground so a rabbit, even standing on his hind legs, couldn't wring the tree and kill it by eating the bark off of it. No one depended much on fruit though. There were places, there's a place called Orchard Point up on the mountain, but it was a grape orchard. Quite a few people grew grapes. But you couldn't hardly make a living. Peaches tend to frost too easy. Apples, well, the cutworms get them. Pears are pretty good. We had a lot of pears, but pears are also kind of gritty. Well, what else? Hickory nuts, you hear about eating hickory nuts. They're nearly impossible to crack. Squirrels can do it, humans have trouble. Still a lot of hickory nuts around. When I was growing up, there were still a few chinkapin trees. The chestnut blight wiped them out. I remember when the last one died. I was an adult by then, and we were trying to keep it safe and not let any animals near it or anything, but the birds would carry this fungus on their feet over, and eventually every chinkapin died. A friend of mine in Harrison, he's got a chinkapin tree in his backyard. He gave me some seed. I'm going to try to plant some, get them started again. Now you need to plant blight-resistant chestnut trees. We didn't have those much. We had chickpeas. Chestnuts, they're more of a valley type crop here. They're all over the East Coast, but they're not here. But he's got a chestnut tree too. I want to plant some of them, see what I can do. Well, let's see, what else went on? Everybody had bicycles. Mine was an old junker that my brother had and didn't have any brakes. You had to stand on the pedals to try, hopefully to make it stop. If you got a lot of momentum, it would just pick you up and bounce you up and down real hard before you ever stopped, if you stopped. Everybody had bike wrecks, of course, too. Every one of us has got a scar someplace from someone slamming into us or turning over into the gravels or something. It was the way you amused yourself. We played with each other. We had games. We had little playhouses. We'd build little dams on the creeks. It was something the kids today don't experience because we had no outside entertainment coming in except radio. Most people did have a radio. I remember listening to Wild Bill Hickok and Sergeant Preston of the Mounties and shows like that. But radio was on its way to dying about the time I was growing up because television was on its way. I very well remember the first television on the mountain. It belonged to a neighbor of ours called Levi Jones. Levi's house suddenly became extremely popular. People would come from all over the place just to spend the evening with Levi and his wife Lavona, just to watch their television set. And we'd watch anything. We watched the commercials just as rapidly as if it was the best program in the world. Well, then my uncle got a TV set and a one-channel antenna. It was designed the right space to pick up Channel 10 out of Springfield. Channel 3 was pretty iffy. UHF channels like 27, 21, 33 didn't exist. I mean, you just didn't have them. You could, maybe if you had a good antenna, you could pick up some stuff, but nobody much had antennas. But then, a terrible thing happened in the winter of 1956 and into 57. The Asian flu. The Asian flu killed, I think, 5,000 people in the United States. It was nasty stuff. It was like someone just took the blood out of you. You were sick and you just stayed home, and it hit adults just as hard as it hit the kids. Well, my father asked us, we'd been sick for like 2 weeks. He says, what do you want when you get well? They said, we want to get a television set. So he got us an old Philco tube television set. And a friend of ours who knew about this stuff got us a big, tall antenna, which you could turn and point in various directions. So we could watch Springfield. And again, Channel 10 was the only really strong one that came in. 3 was iffy because they were broadcasting out of a building in downtown Springfield. You could turn it and point it toward Little Rock, and if the weather was right, you could get Little Rock. You could turn and point it toward Memphis, Tennessee, and if the weather was absolutely right, you could get Memphis. And if there were thunderstorms between you and someplace, you could get goodness knows where. We picked up Green Bay, Wisconsin one time. We picked up Monterrey, Mexico one time. And we picked up, one night we were wanting to watch Zorro on Channel 3. Channel 3 wouldn't come in. Well, we fiddled around and moved the antenna, and lo and behold, we got a Channel 3 all right, Indianapolis, Indiana. And it had Zorro on, and we got to watch Zorro, and then the thunderstorm moved, and we were back where we started from. We read a lot. My parents were extremely good about pushing our education, so that to this day, my friends say that I've got the vocabulary virus. I use too many big words. And I grew up to be a teacher. I was the first person of my branch of the family to graduate from college in the 20th century. I mean, we've been poor folks. I became a teacher and a writer. I've got 8 books in print. And once you're ever bitten with a writing bug, you can't stop. I mean, they'll someday find me face down with my nose on the keyboard. It's inevitable. There are no retired writers. You just write till your fingers won't move anymore. All right. I went to the University of Arkansas. Harrison had a graduating class of 135. That's pretty big. It's pretty close to the size it is now. And it was a baby boom. 25 students of us went to the University of Arkansas. 16 went to Arkansas Tech. Half a dozen went to Arkansas State, and some others were scattered around here and there. Okay, of the 25 that went though, just because you didn't want to get drafted, remember the draft? Okay, just because you didn't want to get drafted didn't mean you knew how to go to college. And so a lot of my friends who had been, let's say, not the greatest students when they were in high school, discovered they were not the greatest students when they got to college and became involuntary members of the armed services. Okay, of the 25 that went, 4 years later, 6 of us graduated. Now that's some of them had transferred to other schools which weren't quite as hard. In those days, again, the colleges had it all their own way. They were building buildings. It was, in high school, you get used to this. In high school, they treat you as if you're important. If you don't get it, they will spoon feed it to you. When we got to college, it was different. Instead of being concerned and spoon-fed, we got what you would do if you were slopping the neighbor's hogs. You'd put it out there, and if they got it, they got it, and if they didn't, they didn't. They were hogs after all. Okay, well that's the way the students were treated by the colleges in the last part of the 60s, until the baby boom passed. After it passed, 500 smaller colleges closed their doors. We were the last really big surge. Probably the class right after mine, the class of 65, was probably the biggest single class to graduate from Harrison ever. And then it didn't reoccur into that size again until way up in the 1990s or something. Different one. I went off to Missouri to teach school. Teaching school. You know, they were paying me $5,000 a year to teach school. $5,000 a year? Give me a break. I mean, now, after I'd been out of teaching for a few years, I went back to Bearville to teach. $42,000 a year. Hey, what? I mean, how long is this, quote from Robert Heinlein, how long has this, what did he say, was like a con game. How long has this con game been going on? Well, when I'd been out for teaching for 10 years, evidently they decided to start paying teachers more. The trouble is that nowadays, every teacher that sees this will say, amen. They decided that if they're going to pay us more, they're going to turn us into little bureaucrats just like them. And so the heaviest load the teachers in this region bear is the Arkansas Educational Department in Little Rock. They're always coming up with these wonderfully clever ideas, and it comes up from people who have never been in a classroom, by the way, who have been in the classroom so long ago they've forgotten what it's like to try to hammer biology into sophomore students' heads. And it's just, that's the way it is now. Pays pretty good, but the load, it's just as good as ever was. Move it along or wrap it up. Wrap it up, okay. I now live in the Batavia area, which is in Boone County also. I'm retired. Yeah, right, if you're a writer, you never retire. And I substitute teach. It's like an old horse, you gotta go back. You just gotta go back. You'll discover this. If you've ever lived out on Gaither Mountain or in another rural area around here, you'll always think about that as your home. Don't fight that. Make your plans, go to the city, make your money, and then go home again. Because there's a lot of parts of Boone County besides having houses on each side of you. And you don't want to miss out on that. That's the advice I give. Don't lose out on the hidden rewards of rural life.